Hey team, welcome back to another episode of the Strength Game Podcast. I'm your host, Nick O'Brien, and this is episode number 80. The Strength Game is a weekly podcast dedicated to discussing all things physical culture, with the coaches, athletes, iron enthusiasts, and experts deeply embedded in the strength game on both sides of the profession, both as coaches and as competitive athletes. I want to thank everyone who has liked, shared, and commented. Please consider giving us a 5-star rating on your favorite podcast platform or leave a comment of who you want to hear on here next. That support allows us to continue to bring on expert guests and highlight more individuals in the strength game, just like our guests today. I also want to thank our sponsors. Samson Equipment has been providing uncompromising quality for over 40 years. Samson products are long-lasting and made of the highest quality equipment on the market. Each project is built from the ground up with the ability to customize every need. The team at Samson focuses on developing the highest quality relationships with their customers, in addition to providing them unparalleled quality and every piece of equipment bearing the Samson name. Learn more about Samson's professional weight room solutions and the Samson standard at samsonequipment.com. Also want to thank our sponsor, Cerberus Strength. If you're in the market for the highest quality strength conditioning gear and equipment, be sure to check out cerberusstrength.com and use promo code strength_game to receive an extra 10% off your next order. And in this week's episode, I am joined by Brennan Sweeney. Brennan is an assistant strength coach at North Carolina A&T, working with the Aggies track and field, baseball, and football programs. Additionally, he is the head of performance at Proehlific Park in Greensboro, North Carolina, working with a multitude of different age groups, athletes, sports, and teams. Sweeney got us start coaching as an intern at Total Sports Performance in Michigan, while continuing to finish his undergraduate degree. Since then, he's been the head coach for the NC Fusion, owner of Pure Impact, a lacrosse coach for Greensboro Day School, as well as a lacrosse referee, all while trying to pursue his career in coaching. In addition to his coaching, Sweeney is the host of the Coach's Cradle podcast, a former college lacrosse player. He played midfield for the Guilford College Lacrosse team from 2017 to 2021 and continues to strength train as well as play semi-pro lacrosse. I'm excited to have him on the show today. So with all that said, let's get in the game with Coach Brennan Sweeney. What's going on, everybody? I've got today on the show Brennan Sweeney. What's going on today, man?
We're doing good, man. I was just about to say a preface of, if you hear my dog, she's getting into the play mood. Any barking or rustling around is just her going crazy. So I hope that doesn't disturb anyone. But talking to my good friend Nick and playing with my best friend, my dog. So decent time.
No, it's perfect. No, she can make a cameo whenever she wants. So I'm all for it. Hey, but let's I've been on your podcast before, so this is cool to kind of get you on the other side of the camera and the microphone. So we're going to hop right into it for our audience and get into what really got you involved in the strength game, what got you playing lacrosse, and what you're kind of doing now to train.
Yeah, man, I love how you say the name of your podcast in the intro. That's phenomenal. I didn't know that you were such a PR personnel, but so basically my training experience, I could say, started when I just started private training lacrosse kids when I was in college. I came home, and being from Michigan, you definitely come home and you have 3-ish months to work, and trying to find a job during that summertime is a little inconvenient because every time I go up into a job interview, I just said, well, I'm going to be gone in 3 months. And they're like, okay, then get out. And so that was pretty tough, but I've always enjoyed coaching. And so when I was coaching my former travel team, I just said to a bunch of kids, hey, do you want to get extra work in? And a bunch of them were like, yeah. And I started to train them on the side, just different high school fields I could find, different private areas I could find. And we would just get working. And honestly, I'm still connected with a bunch of them. They're having their college careers right now. So I get to have my, overhead view of how they've turned out. And a bunch of them have done really well and gone on to be pretty successful in the college game. And so it's always great to see. And so that gave me at least the initial itch of training people. And I've always been into lifting. I've always been into fitness and different stuff like that. I think the normal story I normally tell when people ask me how I got into stuff is, and it sounds so stupid, but I was a wrestler in 4th grade. And I just thought of myself as like, man, I'm just like pudgy and I'm chubby and I just don't want to be in this weight class because there's just bigger kids than me. They're just taller and more muscular than I am. And I was like 4th grade. And so I literally like just started to train myself and, try to watch what I eat. And honestly, I think I just like skipped a bunch of dessert a bunch of days and it worked out where I lost like 10, 15 pounds. And so to myself, I thought, wow, okay, I guess I can manipulate my body in a certain way. And then through middle school, I don't think I did anything that was any extreme. I mean, I stopped wrestling when I moved. So I think I was just doing a bunch of probably body weight push-ups and pull-ups in the basement of my, house. And then freshman year, I wrestled and I also did CrossFit. And that was the first really big introduction into me training, where my wrestling coach in high school ended up being he's still on a run right now, but by the time I ended and graduated high school, he was a 4-time masters CrossFit athlete. So 9 years at this point, and he was jacked out of his mind, but he would only let us practice with these Bulgarian battle bags. I don't know if anyone can pull up a picture of those things, but those things were like hell on earth. We had a weight room adjacent to the room, and he would just pull out these bags that weighed like 30 pounds. We do like over the head swings with them, cleans with them, squats with them. And we're just like, what the hell, coach? But that was my intro. And then after that, I did CrossFit because he did CrossFit. And I went to CrossFit like 7 days a week. I loved it. I thought it was honestly the peak of performance. And, we can get into that later, but found out it's not, or at least back then, it definitely had its flaws where I'm hitting a max out every single day. But yeah, so that's how I got into training, and I've continued to train. I continue to enjoy it. It's something I look forward to every day. I'm still definitely a person that, if I don't work out during a given period, I'm like, oh my God, I just feel off right now. So training is still a huge part of my life. I know some other coaches who are maybe too busy or just can't get it in. And so my boss over at my private facility has maybe worked out 3 times in the past like 3 years, and he's still in incredible shape. And I'm just not one of those people that can do that. He can walk up to any bar and power clean 275, just a genetic freak. And I'm like, okay, that's not who I am. I need to keep in it. I need to stay active. And so that's pretty much how I got into everything. And that's currently, I think my views about training overall is I'm still very active. I'm only 25, so I guess I'm trying to use and abuse my body for as young as I still am, and for as many years that I still have, for training hard and not waking up every day feeling like someone took hammers to my knees. So I'm just doing that for now. But then, currently right now, I'm sure you could have brought on a couple different pro lacrosse players. We were just talking about some dudes who do some strength and conditioning, Mark Ellis and David Manning, who may be better to talk about professional lacrosse than I. But right now I play semi-pro box lacrosse, and honestly, it's been a really fun opportunity for me to stay in the game that I really enjoy. And the team that I have is also owned by a couple of my really good friends. And so it is just the best balance of me staying very competitive in my sport and me also being, best friends with the general managers and whatnot. So in terms of training for that, I do so much lacrosse training on the side that I don't really need to do a ton of shooting, or I don't need to drag a net out to a random field and do a bunch of that stuff. I stay pretty into it with lacrosse, and it's really just the style of the game of box lacrosse is what needs to be reintroduced every once in a while, because it's such a different and dynamic sport. You being a lacrosse player, I'm sure you understand. And for those of you who have never seen a box lacrosse game, it can be brutal, right? It's definitely hockey on turf for those of you who have not seen it. The first opportunity I've had to play organized box lacrosse, I played it growing up in Michigan, but my first organized box lacrosse experience was going up to the Native American reservation in New York, Onondaga, and I played for the Team Poland Heritage team. And my first opportunity to play box lacrosse was against this Native American team. I remember the whistle blowing, someone getting a face off, and I just got destroyed in the back. And they were like, and I got up and I was like, is that legal? And everyone's just like, yeah, that's legal. Like, that's all fun. I'm just like, dude, this is crazy. And it's just a bunch of Native Americans beating the shit out of me and my teammates, but fantastic time. I could have not asked for a better introduction to the sport. It was a really strong opportunity for me to be introduced into the game and into where it was founded, as you know. So I still try to keep roots. It gets called a medicine game all the time, and until you play it, I don't think it's fully understood. Like, you can say, oh yeah, when I get mad, I shoot basketballs, or I go to the driving range and hit golf balls for an hour, but it really does do something internally to the people that play and devote their time to it, where I think it's something special that if you're around the game, you can understand it through some other people's eyes. So that's basically on me and how I got into performance.
No, that's awesome. That's it's cool to see like kind of the whole lineage and like your track line from starting off and what really kind of got you motivated. And it really blended right into what you were doing, from training yourself to playing right into coaching too. I mean, you're right too. I've trained a few native players, and they definitely have a different approach to it. They have a different respect for the game, and it's really fun to watch them play too, because their stick skills are insane, and it's so cool to actually see them play either outdoor or actually indoor, which is fun as well. But no, I know you touched on it a little bit too, because now you'll have to tell me a little bit more what you're doing, because like you obviously like coach people in the private sector, you coach like other like youth players and lacrosse specifically. I know now you're also working at NCA&T as well.
Yeah.
So like, how are you balancing all those things and finding time to like still train yourself? Because I mean, you probably are going back and forth from different facilities. Like, you got college sports, you've got youth, you've got high school kids. Like, how does that kind of balance out? And then what's the training look like when you jump from one place to another?
Yeah, it's I balance it pretty poorly, but I try the best I can. I also officiate around this area because I didn't have enough time to coach a high school team. I figured it was a great way to stay in the game, and it's also better cash than coaching. So I officiate on the side as well. So I think the best way to do that is just to explain how my day looks. So today was my day where I get to sleep in a little bit more. And so I get to sleep in until 6. My first client is at a private facility that's actually 4 minutes down the road from my apartment. We needed to buy this apartment, otherwise this wouldn't work, and I would be crippled and out of gas all the time. So first client's at 7 a.m. It's lacrosse private, and then I have another one at 8, and it's back to back. So that's all field work, that's all turf stuff. It depends on what kind of client I have, and honestly, I feel like I'm pretty reactive, and that's what makes my sessions better than other people's sessions. Is I don't walk up with a plan, and I don't walk up with a bunch of ideas about how this person should play or train. And so today, the 7 a.m. guy is brand new to lacrosse, and the dad essentially was just saying, okay, he does not have enough experience in this, and so we are working for an hour straight just based off of fundamentals and just trying to get him to understand the problem solving behind lacrosse, because it's so intricate and it's so detail oriented that if you have never played it, it's like playing basketball, having to make all these processes while dribbling, but then also juggling with your other hand. Because sometimes we'll work on a drill and then I'll just add myself into it to add that reactive component where I'm just trying to progress the drill along its natural scheme. Yeah, there goes the squeaks. But then he'll just drop the ball immediately, and you're like, oh my God, dude, what just happened? He's just like, oh, I just got scared. And so we're just working to get that out of him of, hey, this is normal in this game. We have to be used to it. This has to be your new normal if you're going to be successful at this. And so that session is completely different than my other session, which is a very, very bright, very talented young girl who graduated high school 2 years early because she just didn't like high school. She was like, I just want to get out of here and I just want to play college lacrosse. And so her session is 30 minutes speed and agility work where we are just getting all of her weird habits out, because playing field hockey, playing girls lacrosse, you would think that these girls would have decent mechanics, but the sport basically adapts them to be very bent over and very leaned over. So they have very squatty runs. They have very interesting mechanics. They run very side to side. And so a lot of that session in the 30 minutes is just drilling knee position, foot position, ankle position, getting her to have a stronger base overall. And then the other 30 minutes is just working on her game. So I'm talking to her dad, who's her head coach. I'm talking to her teammates about what her game is like, what she can improve on. And so that whole 30 minutes is just devoted to making her a stronger lacrosse player. So then I go from there to A&T for the next little bit. And that's usually my office hours. I would say that's kind of when I'll get a workout in. So when I get there, I may do some computer work. I may respond to emails. I may do some programming for other private clients, and then I'll work out for about an hour. Right now, I'm really caught into the wave of Olympic lifting, and I think I probably bit off more than I can chew at the moment, trying to do one of Travis Mash's programs where I'm like, I said it the other day, or I said it the other minute when I was talking about CrossFit, like I'm actually maxing out every single day for squats. So it's pretty brutal, but I've enjoyed the programming so far because I can get into it in a second, but I'm also learning how to golf right now. And I'm just thrilled to be bad at something right now, or to not be great at it. And the whole learning process behind golf and weightlifting have been very eye-opening, and what kind of learner I am and how patient I need to be, and how I can also talk to my athletes about different skills that they can acquire. And so that's been great. So I'll be there until about 11:30, 12-ish, and then I'll drive back over. I'll have lunch. I'll take the dog out, and then I drive back over. So today I had PPL guys, post pitch lift players from last night's game against Chapel Hill. And so they'll come in. It's just 2 or 3 guys. They'll come in and get their lift in. And then I stayed in, did more office work, and then had a group of throwers come in at 3:30. And then normally I would come back home and then have some private sessions at 5, and then another group at 6. But I've tried to step away from that just a tad, just to give myself some more time. And so it's definitely a wide variety of training styles. In the morning, it's very general. It's very basic. It's sprint oriented. It's movement concept oriented. And then when I get there in the afternoon and have to train baseball players, it's PPL. So it's a wide variety of movements. It's high stimulus. And the throwers, it just depends on what time of the year that they're in, because right now, since they're about to be in the middle of their outdoor season, we're just working on peaking, and it's low volume, high intensity. Like today, we just did some jerks. We did some chained bench, which has been great for them. Their power numbers go up a ton when we do a bunch of chain benched and block bench. So we've been integrating that into more of a conjugate system. So the throwers have been enjoying that. And then when I train high schoolers again, I'll come back here and I'll run 1x20 and very basic principles when I come back over and train high schoolers.
Yeah, it's a pretty full day, and you threw this on the back end too. So it's you kind of avoided your break and added this back onto the schedule. But now we appreciate you coming on. It's kind of crazy to go from such a wide variety too, especially the locations and like you're working sports specific stuff. Since this is like you were at a college, like you played college lacrosse, and like I don't know how your program was, if you had like a strength coach and everything there, because not every smaller division school does. But how's been your first experience with college? Because I'm sure you probably can't go in and do what you do with your private clients where you see how they're feeling or what they want to work on for that day. You kind of have to have a little bit more of a plan when you've got 40 baseball guys coming in, or your assistant with the football team, or you have all the track who are getting ready for conference meets or things like that. You can't really kind of just pull it out of the air. So how's that kind of transition for you like in the first job where you actually have to periodize a little bit further in advance because the college season is set in stone.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good point. With my private setting, people, I may see them less regularly, and so I can just ask them, what have you been doing? And it's a waste of my time to periodize for them because they're just so out of it here and there. So private setting is just a little different, but yeah, in college I did not have a strength coach. I played Division III lacrosse, and even though we were pretty good, and a bunch of the other schools in our conference had more developed athletic programs or different strength coaches, we just never had that opportunity. We maybe had our coach that would lift us every once in a while, or a couple captains when I was younger lift us. And then since my season was more COVID, it started to turn into, hey, you have to schedule times and stuff. And it just kind of fell through. So a bunch of the training that we would have been doing fell out the window. And so it just turned on. And I have a twin too. So we were able to play lacrosse together and keep each other pretty disciplined and oriented towards what we were trying to do. And so that's been yeah, that's crazy. But so my college setting was a very interesting, but I think a very helpful process, where I had interviewed Ferris Ali, who's the director of performance at A&T, for my podcast. We graduated from the same college. He called me up like the next week and just said, "Hey, we have a job opening. Do you want it?" And I was just like, "Yeah, it sounds interesting. I'll take it." And I was just supposed to work with basically golf, bowling, and shear to kind of offload some of his. And so I was just going to be part-time. And that was kind of all I wanted to do, because I'd always been the mindset of, oh, college is just overworked, underpaid, and I can't do what I want kind of stuff, blah, blah, blah. And so he called me in January. I got all my application stuff in probably within a week. So we're still talking about January. And then our entire HR staff gets laid off. And so I end up not getting hired until like April. And so basically all the sports that I was supposed to train were already done with their seasons. And so this gave me a pretty good opportunity to just sit back, watch, learn, and assess some other groups, maybe sub in for some groups that, needed a strength coach, or Coach Ali had something to do. So over the summer, just working with football for the entirety of the summer gave me a great opportunity just to practice coaching college kids and understanding how A&T worked, and gave me a good idea of the atmosphere in the college, because it's a very unique setting. If anyone's ever worked at an HBCU, it's a fantastic environment. I really, really can't stress how much fun it is to work at an HBCU. And then within the fall, I came back and we had some staff turnover, and he was just kind of wondering what to do with us. And he was like, "Do you just want the track team?" I was like, "Yeah, our track team's pretty historically good. I think that'd be a fun sport to start off with." And then that turned into more complicated issues because our track coach left and took all of our All-Americans. I would too if I left, but so I was just like, this is a brand new program, brand new coach. Our new coach now has 3 Olympic gold medals, so this should be a pretty fun time still. But it just had its complications, where I think we only brought in like 5 freshmen because of the lack of recruiting time, because our coach was literally training the USA hurdlers. And so where I thought I would start off with the track team, we had to regress from there. And I basically wrote up a program, and it's just been tweaking it ever since. I do a lot of data collection with the guys. So what I'll do is basically get jump numbers throughout the semesters. I'll get strength numbers throughout every week. I'll get, like I said, like data numbers through jumps and strength every week. I just worded that poorly, but yeah, I'm changing the program. We're just going basically 3 to 6 week blocks. I'm being very reactive off of what the data is telling me, how they're telling me they feel through their readiness questionnaires and whatnot. And so that is giving me an indication of how they're responding to the training. And so I'll take that data and look it over with our director, think about what we want to do next. And so, if we start off doing basically like a triphasic volume block where I just wanted to do an eccentric block to teach them different movements that I like, teach them the ISO block to go over more of the different positionings, and then start to ramp up the concentric forces in our program. And then what's been probably the more challenging thing is just understanding that, we're probably only going to train for 6 weeks at a time max before, one, they get pulled, two, they have spring break or different breaks throughout the semester. And it's just been me getting used to, anticipating those and then looking at my program and writing for the end and then working backwards, versus where I think at some private settings, I would probably write from the start where we are now and then be reactive in terms of where are these kids going to end up, or where do I want them to end up? And then just going throughout a daily basis or a weekly basis. But I'm really having to go, okay, national championships are in June this year for outdoor nationals. Why don't we just say we have this much time, we have this allotted volume that we want to hit? Why don't we see where we'll end up and where do I want the program to look like at the end of the year? And so it's just been interesting. I mean, it's like you had talked about, it's my first time where I've really got to periodize, and jump numbers have consistently gone up. Strength numbers have consistently gone up. The kids are getting healthier now. The kids are really enjoying the weight room. And so I wouldn't say it's been a failure by any means, or I'm like stressing, I'm pulling my hair out. It's just been, I would do some things differently next year, and I will do some things differently next year, and it's just a learning experience. And then baseball got thrown on me. I shouldn't say thrown on me, but I went full time. Decided to take a step back from my private stuff just because, I mean, once you go to your first track meet, our first track meet was in New York City, and it was the HBCU Classic. And I mean, you walk in there and there's a bunch of fans, they're going crazy, and you're seeing some of the events go on. And I was hooked from the second I walked in there. And so I think we had a conversation maybe the next couple of weeks where he's like, do you want to go full time? I was like, yes, like this is super fun. This is what I want to do. I could not be happier being in a college setting and just watching these kids compete. It's just been such a special environment for me. And the baseball team is now having success. And it's just been a really great opportunity to sit back and watch college athletes where I was at 2-3 years ago, and just, picking their minds and exploring more about what's important to them and how do we get there, and watching them fulfill their goals is such a special part about college athletics.
No, I completely agree. It's cool to see like you kind of tried to dip your toe in the water, and somehow the whole schedule just kind of kept getting flipped on you, and you added more and more to your plate. That was going to be one of the questions I was going to ask, was like, how long are you really able to sustain like the private sector and the college sector? But you already kind of said you kind of bit off more than you could chew, and you had to take a little step back. Obviously, we'll touch on it a little bit later too, like how you still go back and forth between the two. But no, I agree with you what you said with college. Like as soon as you see them play and you see them actually get to excel and have success on the field, and actually go against another university, go against a different school, or actually be on the turf, or be on whatever their sport of choice is, it's pretty fulfilling to see all the hard work that you guys put in, to see them actually do the thing that they came to college to do. And being so closely removed from that, I'm sure that probably hits home even more. But I wanted to touch on what you were saying too, which is you brought up a good point about like youth sports, like, where they kind of want to be, like talking to their parents or talking to the athletes, whether as far-fetched or maybe realistic as it is, like they want to be like playing college or they want to play professional. But the path to get there is so very different. You just kind of know the goal in mind. So you, like you said, you can kind of freestyle that day based off what they're doing. But college, they're already so far along on that path. You really have to start with the end in mind and kind of work your way backwards to get to national championship. And then maybe they go past that. So it's interesting how you put it, because not working with youth a lot myself, and now that you're working with both sides of this, like you're working at like two different sides of the spectrum, it's interesting how you have to like manage that approach when you go talk to a different aged athlete who's at a completely different stage of their career.
And the one thing that's common between youth and college athletes is the overinflated expectations. And sometimes as a strength coach, you have to be the one to talk to them about, hey, this may not be the best idea, or this may not be realistic. Where I talk to so many high school kids who have Division I dreams, and they want to play at this school and they want to play at that school. And I mean, they're like sophomores and juniors. And in the back of my head, you have to bring out at some point, hey, these recruiting classes are full, or they know exactly who they're going to take. And it's Syracuse and Hopkins and Duke. And if you're not on that short list, they're going to get who they want. So there's no room. And then in college, it's talking to kids and, oh, I want to everyone always talks about like winning a national championship. And I don't want to be pessimistic about it ever, but in college, our goal was always to win a conference championship. And it was just, to me, every time they talked about it, it was just so unrealistic, because we're going up against 4 top 25 Division III teams in our conference, and we've never made it to the conference playoffs. And so what I always talk about with my athletes in mind is like, let's set very realistic goals. So let's not set out for the national championship if we can't get the conference championship. Let's not set out for the conference championship if we're not running top conference times, or if we're not beating the middle tier teams in our conference. Let's not talk about that until we've gotten here. And so that's been, I think, a pretty consistent message. My career is just, again, I'm not pessimistic, but I'm realistic in any sense, is how I would put it.
No, that makes sense. I mean, a lot of people are set those unrealistic goals and it makes no sense. Like there should be a step approach to it too. Like if you're going to set it out and like your goal, okay, is to win the national championship. All right. Then the goal before that obviously should be to make the NCAA tournament. And the goal before that hopefully is to win the conference tournament. And then before that is to make the conference tournament. Otherwise, I think there's almost 300 like Division III like men's lacrosse programs. So
Yeah.
if everybody's goal is to win the national championship and Salisbury wins again, which is
As
bound
always,
to happen, it could happen.
as always, Salisbury's are tough. Yeah.
299 teams failed their goals. So
Yeah.
it's not the best approach, I think.
No, and you've talked to Matt Nine, and I think Matt Nine is a great person that develops a great culture at Salisbury, where winning can be the culture because it's happened before and it's happened so often, where if you end up not getting to the national championship, it's a disappointing season. So for them, the expectations have to be different. But for a middle of the road Division III team, you have to rewrite expectations. If you're not, and especially in a track and field environment where it's an individual sport, if you're not running top 20 times, it may not happen the way you want it to happen. So just rewrite expectations and be satisfied with running a PR. Some kids will run PRs and be so pissed off because they finished in like 3rd place. And I just have to tell them, dude, what are we talking about? You just trained your ass off and you just beat your PR by a full second. Why are we mad? So that's been a new thing to me, but like we're talking about right now, if you guys go up to High Point, North Carolina, and you guys end up losing to High Point by 20, I would honestly be a little ticked off if they're like, yeah, but like we'll get them in the conference championship. And it's just like, guys, seriously, like let's do, but at the same time, you can do things to alter the effective scores. So being a strength coach, being a performance coach, we're going to obviously put our best foot forward to change that scoreboard. Even if that's counterintuitive to what I was just talking about.
No, I understand. No, it's a good point too. Like probably for you, it's a little bit different from your wrestling days, like working with those individual sports, like the mindset. And like after competing in individual sports for a while now, like I've never understood people's like thrill of trying to, like, obviously your expectations are different for people, but if you want to get on the podium, really when you go out there, you're just supposed to be competing against yourself. And if you have your best day, like that should be the best thing for you. And if it ends up that your best day beats other people's best day and you're on the podium, that's where your success is going to be. Otherwise, it makes no sense to compete against other people because it gets you out of your element and out of your like competitive mindset.
Yeah, and I mean, the big thing, right? Even being within a team sport is it's so frowned down upon to celebrate yourself having a good game when maybe some other people on your team didn't. There's no number on how many times teammates probably thought that I was being selfish when I'm not super pissed off after a loss because maybe I had a good game. But that's, I think, a big reason why I had a very good college career was because I was able to set expectations for myself and pretty much alter my ego or my ID, if we want to get into psychology about everything. I was able to alter that into saying, I am a good lacrosse player. I'm going to go out and consistently give you my best effort despite situations my team is in, right? So we would go down 10 goals and I'm leave it. But yeah, I mean, in terms of how I view games, and now I get to talk to pitchers and hitters, and that's more mental than I think anything I've ever done, where they just look so deflated after a bad game. And one of my biggest things has just been a mentor, just try to be a mentor to them and just talk to them about how they need to handle some of these losses or some of these bad performances, because you have so many opportunities in a baseball game to do something poorly, and one or two times just affects them to the nth degree. Like, we just got done with Chapel Hill. They're the 15th best team in the country at the moment. And pitchers were so mad because they pitched an entirely perfect game until one pitch where they hit a home run. And they're so mad. They're just coming in, steam coming off their heads, like, I played like shit. And you're like, dude, you just had 5 Ks against the 15th best team in the country. Why are we not happy about that? So, I mean, in terms of athletic performance, I think the biggest thing that I've done to help myself out in my own athletic performance is just to take some stress off my back. And the one book that I always recommend to people who are going to have a ton of different attempts, a ton of different times to mess up, is With Winning in Mind. And that's been huge for myself and different athletes that I'll coach, and just getting them to rethink about how they think about their losses.
No, it's good. That's a good recommendation as well. Obviously, like baseball too, all those opportunities you have, like you're not going to be successful every time. Like a good batter is like what, 300, hitting 300 or even less than that all the time. So the majority of the time you're failing. So it's pitchers and like even like hitters that are going up into that batter's box, you have to be able to move on to the next play more than ever. But it's cool to see it like from an individual setting, like when you play in a team sport, like how you compartmentalize that, and like you can still have success even if the team doesn't have success, and vice versa. You can have a bad game even if the team has a great game. Some people they can't disassociate the two from each other, and just because you're happy with your performance doesn't necessarily mean that like it actually impacted the team to have full success. That's why it's a team sport. Everybody collectively has to have that same amount of effort put in for it to be a successful game.
Yeah, and it just depends from sport to sport. With lacrosse, we have 10 players on the field. If I was one out of 10 players that, tried my best and it altered the score, like, I'm happy about that, because there's 9 other players that, I don't know, like, to me, I can help them by playing my best. So it's not selfish for me to want to do well, because I'm also affecting the games of 9 other players around me. In football, you have the offense and defensive sides, and I think it gets so misconstrued after a game where, since you have 2 sides of the ball, offense played well, defense didn't. Now everyone's really mad at each other, where there's this fuming mindset between, they're so mad that the other didn't do their job, when in reality, I mean, if everyone just went out there and did their best, then why is that not viewed as a successful attempt? Why is that viewed as such a failure?
No, it's a good point. Hey, so I wanted to touch on too, obviously, like you're kind of new in the profession in some regards. Like obviously you've been doing private stuff.
Yeah.
You've been like now your first time like full time too as well in the college sector. But how important is it to you, like, to kind of hold on to like your own personal brand and like what you do
Right.
on the side? And how did you kind of go about creating that? Because I think that's an important venture that college coaches probably that aren't in your position, like maybe start in college right away and stick to college forever, don't ever get a chance to develop. I mean,
Yeah.
you train people on the side, and that might fluctuate where you have a lot of clients, you don't have a lot of clients. Like you have the Coaching Cradle podcast as well, so like you're networking. So like how important is it for you to like kind of hold on and kind of create your own brand that's not just centered around the college you work at?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the one thing I'll say about my own personal brand is that I've just always tried to be as authentic as I can be in terms of the connections I make and the people that I talk to. I'm never going to act like I'm someone different, where if you're a young college strength coach or if you feel like you have to fit into this certain personality mold, I just have never bought into that, where I don't have to be this whistleblowing maniac who's obsessed about how neat everything is or how structured everything has to be, or we can't have fun unless this happens. I think the biggest thing for me and my personal brand has just been trying to figure out who I am internally and then projecting that into the work that I do. And so that's, that's talking shit to athletes, that's making lighthearted jokes about different things, that's the different music that I play, that's how I'll move around in the weight room, that's how I interact on social media. It's just, enjoying what I do and letting people know that I enjoy what I do. So that's why I'll post memes on Instagram instead of all these training montages. It's more fun to me to try to poke fun at different factors of our profession rather than trying to like build up educational resources, as bad as that sounds. Like, I still want to do that, but I'm having fun about it. I'm not pigeonholing myself into being this like hard ass strength coach who just wants to blow whistles and do like FMS assessments on kids all day. When we get out the jump mat, I'm hooting and hollering. When we max out, I'm hooting and hollering. I'm supporting our kids. I'm having fun with the program. It's what I can do to make myself sustain my energy, where it's like I'm not really going to work every day. I'm bouncing around and whatnot, and it can be hard on my feet. The other day I got like 26,000 steps, and there may be some strength coach that DMs me that's like, that's part-time hours, buddy. Like, get your numbers up. But that's how I have fun with it. It's just an enjoyable time for me. I bounce around to high schoolers, I talk shit to them. I bounce around to college kids, I'll talk shit to them, and it makes my day a little bit more enjoyable when I see some more smiles throughout the day rather than just being stern all the time. I think that's when coaches and different professionals can start to really burn out, is when they've started to lose the enjoyment in working and creating relationships with athletes.
No, that's for sure. I see that all the time, and you'll see it. Social media is a pretty bad. It's a perfect example of where stuff can go wrong because you're only seeing a microcosm of what someone's doing, so they can put out their persona that they want to show. So if whatever you put out is what people's perception of you is, as boring as
Right.
my feed is, like as energetic as your feed is, it's not the whole picture, but some people just take it for what it is. But you can
Yeah.
definitely see people in those coaching realms that like they want to put on this specific face for their athletes. So their
Yeah,
athletes think
absolutely.
that like, hey, he's a robot. He's doing everything the right way. Like he's disciplined. But I think you said it the right way too, like understanding who you are and coaching within yourself. Like if you're someone that talks shit with your athletes, you're someone that likes to be lighthearted and have fun, but you can still get down to work. That's how you should portray how you coach. If that's the type of person you are. They need athletes want to see you be human as well. Like if you're having a bad
Yeah.
day, it's easy to tell them that because I think they buy in that a lot more than versus when they put you on a pedestal and they think that you're some sort of like unattainable figure, you're unattainable, like expectations are unreal for you to
Right.
manage. I think it makes it a lot better, and they want to work more for you when they understand that you're kind of going through the same things that they are.
Yeah, and I think some strength coaches tend to struggle with that, especially when you get into the grind of maybe those early morning groups is when I feel like it's probably the worst, where there's all these memes made out of, my strength coach at 5 a.m. while everyone's half asleep, and it's some crazy guy doing some crazy like backflip or whatever. And I think the one honest thing that I've told my 6 a.m. group, which is just distance, so it's not like they want to be there anyways. It's not like they see the major importance of lifting at the moment. I've tried to install that into them. We've seen some good progress with them, but I'll tell them too, like, guys, I'm pretty tired too. Like, you guys woke up at 5:45 to be here 5 minutes early. I was up at 4:50, 5 o'clock trying to get in here to set up for you guys. And we can be tired together, but let's do this work and let's make sure that today is at least a fun day. I don't want this to be the worst part of your day by any means. And the one thing I've told every single group when I meet them is I'm genuinely a great person to be around. I am not going to suck the life out of you, and I truly believe that. If that's arrogant, then sue me. But you're going to enjoy talking to me. Hopefully you're going to enjoy making jokes with me, but don't ever abuse it, because then that's when we'll get serious and that's when it gets taken away. And so that was probably one of the first things that I learned being in the profession. I think it was at a private sector as well, is just you want to start off and then give them leash. You don't want to give them the whole thing right away, because then they'll take advantage of that. And so that's just been my philosophy in it, which is, if we get everything done, it's going to be a phenomenal day and we're going to have a lot of fun. But if we start to mismanage our time, if we start to take advantage of what I'm trying to provide for you, which is a great atmosphere, then, we're not going to have it. And that's kind of how I've kept my athletes accountable. And that's how I've tried to build up the atmosphere around the weight room.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's a lot easier to give more leash later on when you kind of come in hard, because they know what to expect. And then they can kind of earn that it is to try to reel them in and then change the expectations after already you gave them so much freedom. So no, it's a great point, especially when you're starting off with a new team, maybe an unfamiliar team, or even just a new season where you have a lot of people. You do have to set the expectations, but later down the line, when you can kind of show your true colors, then you can give a little bit more leeway. So no, that's a great point. Hey, I wanted to touch on this too before we kind of wrap it up. Obviously with the podcast and everything, you're able to kind of network and get out of kind of your local area, because right now you work with a lot of lacrosse athletes. Obviously, you work with a lot of people at the university and everything too. So how important has it been for you to kind of reach out, maybe even go on the road with some of your track athletes and everything too, so you branch out more than just what's in that area?
Yeah, Greensboro certainly is a stone's throw away from a lot of different colleges. And so I've been able to surround myself in the area with a good network of people. But if you were to just pigeonhole yourself around where your college is, you're not going to find so many strength coaches. You're not going to find so many good personal trainers. And I think everyone has their own unique approach to different items. And that's where networking has become really important to me, is just diversifying the conversations I can have, because it's not only strength and conditioning, it's a lot of different life experience stuff that I'm trying to gain from a lot of different strength coaches that have done it before me. Because we can talk about coaches burning out, but until you've heard from a coach, how they've kept it up, you may still be scared of burning out yourself. But since I've talked to a various amount of strength coaches, I have a better understanding of how to take my time and how to use the energy that I have right now to sustain my career. I mean, the first conversation I had with a really big strength coach was the strength coach from Wayne State University, and he used to be the head football strength coach for Notre Dame. And I shook his hand and he just goes, "Hey, don't fucking be a strength coach." That was my first conversation with a strength coach ever. And it was more or less just like, this job is a grind. But I saw where he was coming from. And, I think networking provides you the opportunity to get a lot of that perspective, because everyone has their own little flair on things. Everyone has their own, everyone reads the same books. I mean, it's not like you get to be 10 years in and for some reason you've read like 100 different books than the next strength coach. You're still going to read the system. You're still going to read simple training. You're still going to read triphasic training. You're still going to do all the same things, but it's that personal experience that I think is what makes strength and conditioning coaches separate from each other. Not everyone is just the same robot that does the same amount of things. But I mean, in the future, yeah, I'm just looking forward to reaching and talking to various strength coaches from a multitude of sports. Since now I'm in like baseball, track and field, and I can talk to football people, I can talk to lacrosse people. I enjoy talking to everyone, and so it's not just I'm trying to talk to lacrosse strength coaches. It's been cool to talk to Matt Nine, Mark Ellis, and Nick Tintle, and some of those guys that have made a really big name for themselves. But it's also really great to go to a track meet and see the Texas strength coach, to see Arkansas strength coach, and just try to brush elbows with them and just try to pick up what you can from them. And that's really one of my favorite parts about having the podcast, is just interacting and learning more from different individuals.
Yeah, and I'm sure like with that experience and working with a wider variety of sports as well now, that probably helps you when you go back and work with some of the athletes that are actually going to be lacrosse specific, because lacrosse takes a little bit of everything. There's basketball kind of movements that you can take away, like pick and rolls and everything. Obviously, like box lacrosse has got a lot of hockey and like checking involved in it too. So all the sports that you're probably working with now, you're able to kind of give some more information and maybe some out of the box ideas that you can bring to lacrosse, rather than just kind of stay pigeonholed to, well, I played lacrosse, I like to still play it, I like to coach it, and now I'm going to strength coach for it. So has that started to help a little bit too? Now seeing what track is doing, seeing what football does, what baseball does, and starting to kind of be around that culture, be around that training environment too. Does that help you in turn with lacrosse again?
Yeah, it does in a sense. Track and field is just the craziest sport to me because the training is so different. The elite track athletes post the craziest clips on Instagram where it's some girl from the Netherlands who just broke a world record, and you're looking at her Instagram feed, or my athletes are, and they're trying to show me, and they're just like, why don't we do this? Why don't we do that? And it's just some crazy exercise by, their trainer's like some 70-year-old lady who doesn't speak English. And I'm just like, guys, like, we're going off the deep end right here. So track and field, maybe less so, just because their training is so specific to running in a straight line as fast as they can, or jumping as high as they can, jumping over hurdles. It's super unique. But what I'll say is you start to understand training at different velocities, and you start to understand the importance of CNS output. And so that has been a huge eye-opener for developing track athletes, is it's not necessarily about the movements, but the speed of the movements, and what is the overarching adaptation that we are trying to achieve, and really digging into that. But, I'm almost like, I would love to work in college lacrosse and get one of those jobs at a decent university, I guess. But I hope that they're not expecting me to come in and do all this like fancy footwork, or have all these super specific lacrosse exercises. Like, we're not going to bench press with a stick, or we're not going to go out there and do like a million different variations of a split dodge. What I can say is that for lacrosse, what really, really works is periodized sprint training, getting your players as fast as you can. And then in the weight room, developing them over the course of their careers, and not overreaching too fast to get them into that specific mindset. If you were to overtake a lacrosse team, I'm sure it looked the exact same, where it's just, hey, sprint volume is going to be the king in our off season. Once we get into the weight room, it is going to be hammering the basics, and we're going to get so damn good at all these basics that it's going to hurt by the time that we get out of the season. You're not going to want to do a lot of the same stuff once you go home from break, but it'll make you better for it. And that's kind of what I preach for my lacrosse kids is, guys, let's just take a step back from trying to do all the sport specific stuff. But you can also add in baseball rehab. You can add shoulder care. And, I had some trap issues when I was a lacrosse player, just from the volume of shooting that I was doing, from the volume of rotation. My low back always was tight. My hamstrings were tight from day to day. So you can add in some of that hamstring rehab that track and field athletes need to do. You need to do some of that arm care that baseball athletes need to do. It's a wide variety of training styles that you can put on a lacrosse player, but at the end of the day, it's just fundamentals over everything, and they're probably going to be pretty healthy. They're probably going to be pretty good. And at the end of the day, you honestly, at this day and age, you can't have a really good lacrosse player that's just an athlete. He has to be super, super specialized in that skill of lacrosse. There's no more just fast midfielder, doesn't have any stick skills, split dodge down the alley, shot on the run 100 miles an hour. You can't have that. The game's too advanced nowadays.
No, it's cool to see where the game has come from and where it's gone now. Because you still see some of the crazy plays by like the Powells and like all the big name guys from back in the day, but now everybody can do that. Like I
right.
watched a few crazy plays. I watched like the St. Bonnie's player like dive from the
Oh
back
my
of the
God.
crease yesterday
Nuts.
and just
Nuts.
throw it. It made no sense. I watched a one-handed goal the other day too. I don't even know how his wrist got it, like the goalie missed it, but it went in, and everybody from top to bottom is athletic too. And I think what you said really resonates too. Like it's all the foundational stuff. Like as intricate as the sport is, as many different ties that come from other sports that kind of get pulled into it, all those different movements. And most kids are playing other sports growing up as well before they get to lacrosse, before they really start specializing. Like you need to be able to train with all the basics and be strong and be able to periodize some of that speed work. But I think what you said too is the most important thing, like overreaching, because for whatever reason, lacrosse and like some of those other sports like hockey, as soon as they start specializing, they try to get right to pro status right away. And I know for you, like talking to some of those parents, they're probably looking at the same feeds that like your track and field, like girls are looking at there when they're looking at caliber, like gold medalists, they see what someone else is doing and want to mimic it when really they're a couple years down the line. Or you have youth athletes that
100%.
haven't even gone through high school yet.
Like the fact that I just had this happen yesterday where this kid is 13 years old and he told me he's been lifting since January, and he's not going to listen to this. So he's a complete know-it-all. And I tried to explain to him what a 1x20 plan was. And he essentially just like effed it off and was just like, no, I really like bench pressing and I really want to do like all this training. I'm like, okay, buddy, this is going to be a very difficult conversation for us to have. But yeah, I mean, you get high school athletes that go into college and they have not had a large foundation of lifting, and you can't treat them like normal college athletes. We had, I was fortunate to coach this one kid this year who's a freshman. And at some point in the season, he ran the 9th fastest 60-meter hurdle time in the country. And guess what? We were just doing basic bare bones training. Like that's what was working the best. And I can't train him like a world champion caliber athlete right now, because that'll just take away from his training further down the line.
I love it. Hey, so like any good training session, we end the show with a finisher. So nice. I got 4 questions for you, 4 quarters, and probably overtime at the end. So you ready?
Yeah, let's go for it.
All right, man. You can go rapid fire. You can take your time. But first one, biggest influence in strength and conditioning and biggest influence in strength sports.
What do you mean by strength sports?
And actually, let's go biggest influence in lacrosse. Let's do that.
There we go. Okay, that's what I thought you were talking about. So for strength and conditioning, I flipped through this. This has been like, I'm not one school of principle of thought where, I think back in the day I would be like, I'm a Cal Dietz guy, or I'm Pat Davidson has really good principle, so maybe I'm with him. But I would say my mentor right now is Ferris Ali, because he got me into the college game. Like I can't talk about anything in college strength and conditioning without mentioning his name. So Ferris Ali has done a great job just teaching me and being patient with me and having me, have reins. And then, we talk through it. So he's been fantastic. And then my mentor for lacrosse is Dwayne Hicks, who's out of Michigan. He coaches now for Detroit Mercy women's lacrosse, but he was a multiple club coach of the year for Michigan State when they were running through their prowess in the club scene. And he started up the club program that I played for when I was growing up. And When I talk about lacrosse, I can't mention without mentioning Dwayne Hicks. He's phenomenal. Every time he's in Winston-Salem for a recruiting tournament, we stop by and he has a burger with me or something, and he's just done so much for me and evoked such like just a burning passion for the game that he's just phenomenal. I can't say enough good things about Dwayne Hicks.
Nice. Hey, so if you weren't coaching, what profession do you think you'd be doing right now? Like, what would you be your day-to-day job you'd be going to?
My girlfriend's really mad about this, but I'll probably be a firefighter. I for whatever reason, man, it's just hanging with the boys and cooking up some food and saving some cats from some trees just really sounds enjoyable to me. So if I ever get out of this, I'd probably just end up being a firefighter somewhere and doing something like that.
I mean, what is adding part-time firefighter to your list of things to do right now?
Right. Yeah, I could train and just do that shit on the side. I got enough free time.
Exactly. Hey, so if you weren't in lacrosse and you had to go back and do it again, what sport would you pick to go pro in? And it can't be lacrosse.
The professional aspect just made the question so much harder because I don't want to be a pro track and field athlete because we have one of our college coach's old athletes that trains, and his name's Cravant, and he I mean, I see what that guy does at practice and it sucks so bad. But I would run track in high school. I regret not doing that. That's one sport that I wish I did early and often. But it's definitely golf just because the aspect of I get to wake up in golf every day, and I probably live somewhere like California and Florida, and it's perfect weather all the time wherever I am, and I just get to golf every day, and then I make millions of dollars. That would be a fantastic lifestyle choice if I were to ever go back and do it again.
Yeah, I gotcha. And you kind of touched on it too. I know you've been starting in golf. So what are some of the other hobbies you have when you're not coaching? Like I know golf is on the list now, but what else is on that list?
Yeah. So anything that I am pursuing to get better at, I guess I view as a hobby. And so cooking is something that on the side I try to do just because I have a girlfriend and I basically do all the cooking for us, and she can get a little picky. And so in terms of like her being like, oh, I'm tired of this or I'm tired of that, it forces me to come up with new recipes or try different new golf, Olympic weightlifting. I guess you can consider one just because it's a skill that I'm trying to develop right now. And then on the side, I'm also starting up like a coffee company. So my hobby also revolves around coffee and different things revolving around that. And so if anything, it's coffee, golf, and cooking.
Coffee's not a bad one too.
No,
Hey, so if you're setting up an ideal training day for yourself, what's on the radio and what's the best post-training meal if you're maybe not cooking it?
Oh, so good. Such a good question. So it's been a little different, I guess, nowadays, just because I'm always on aux in our gym, and it's forced me to really dive into trap rap and the different variations of trap rap, like Detroit style. And so I was in the top 0.2% listeners for Kodak this year, which is I never thought in a million years I would be like a Kodak or an NBA YoungBoy fan, but those guys get you pretty fired up. It depends though. I mean, sometimes I can throw on the country and have like a Zach Bryan, Tyler Childers day in the weight room as I'm maxing out on back squats. It really just depends on my mood. So I would say, I'd probably say NBA YoungBoy over anyone. And then directly after, if I could choose anything, it would probably be a Chipotle burrito bowl. I'll walk through the order just to put some people on some game right now. It's going to go bowl, double white rice, fajita vegetables, double steak, and then mild salsa, medium salsa, sour cream, corn, and lettuce is going to be the go-to order for Chipotle.
All right. That's a big bowl right there. So I like that.
Yep. Keeps it full.
So last one I got for you for overtime. As of right now, like in your career with coaching, what do you find, or what do you, in your opinion, think is the most important attribute of a successful coach?
Relationship building. If you're going to talk about people who are very successful in the field, it's going to sound, it's not going to sound crazy because if this is strength coaches listening, they know. But if you're a younger strength coach, there are so many people out there that do not have the skill to be an elite strength coach at a professional or Power 5 level, but because they are the best person to talk to for different coaches, because the administrators love them, because their athletes love them, they're 10 out of 10 going to get job recommendations, right? So if you devote your skill set to relationship building, you are going to be a phenomenal strength coach because the administrators are going to love you. The head coaches are going to love you, who you basically work for. And then if you can have your athletes buy into what you are selling as a coach, then it makes your job 100% easier. You don't have to do any flashy things that they see on Instagram now. You now get to just tell them, this is what is best for us. And they will say, okay, got it.
No, that's a great point. And I mean, if you already kind of know that and you know how important that is, like at this stage of your career, like I'm sure you're going to have a lot of success moving forward. So no, that's a really good point. Hey, I appreciate you coming on today, Brennan. So for anybody that wants to follow up, they got more questions. Maybe they're in the Greensville area too, or the Greensboro area, and they want to get trained, not Greensville. Well, you know where it is. Anybody that wants to train with you too, where can they get a hold of you? Where can they follow some of the lacrosse memes and everything too?
So the Instagram is the lacrosse strength coach on Insta. That makes it pretty easy. I'm on Twitter as Coach B Sweeney. You can follow me on LinkedIn, I guess, if that's your thing. I don't post to LinkedIn all that much. I just use it to connect, reach out for some podcast guests. You can follow my podcast, Coach's Cradle. And that's really all I post. That's really all I do. But if you want to reach out to me, if you want to talk shop, if you want to develop anything in terms of off air stuff, then just reach out on Instagram. That's probably the easiest way to get a hold of me. And again, I just want to say thanks, Nick, for having me on. You were a fantastic guest on my podcast. If anyone has made it to this far in the episode, thank you. But check out Nick's podcast with me too. If you want to get more of Nick and his side of the story on what he does, it's a good resource as well. And this has been a really fun time for me.
No, I appreciate you having me on, man. It was always fun to talk shop and kind of get to know you too. So
you still gotta get that beer when you come up for High Point.
Yeah. Well, I don't know when we're gonna be up.
You may not travel as much, right?
Yeah, I don't know who we're gonna play. We played High Point at a neutral site, so it's a little different this year, especially with the conferences realigning a bit. So now we're in the ASUN and they're out. So we're gonna see. Man. We're gonna see what we got because we got Charlotte. We'll have Charlotte. And no one else really North Carolina. I'm hoping one day we get UNC and we get Duke back on the schedule there so we can get up in the area. But I'm gonna make my way through your guys' area at some point too. So we'll definitely have to link up, and when you're down in Jacksonville, we'll do the same thing, man.
Absolutely, man. Sounds great.
Awesome, man. Well, I appreciate you coming on today.
Yeah. Great time, man. Great time.
That's it for this episode of The Strength Game. Thank you again to this week's guest and to our sponsors. Be sure to connect and keep up with our guests at the links in the description below. Remember to subscribe to us on Apple and Google Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast provider to stay up to date on all future episodes. Also, check us out on YouTube and CoachO'Brien.com, where you can find all the video versions of these episodes, as well as show notes, episode schedule, and much more. Comments, ratings, and reviews are always welcome and appreciated. Thanks again for tuning in, and be sure to join us next week for another great episode of The Strength Game.